You are all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, James. I want to welcome everybody to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for April 28th, 2021. And if you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Noreen, if you could do the roll call, please.
Sure. Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey, Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Havens, Commissioner Lenowers,
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski, Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Braverman,
Here.
Commissioner Gill,
Here.
Commissioner Haggerty.
Here.
Okay,
So what do we have?
You're missing two, Dominic, and we're missing one.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
We're gonna sit Commissioner Braverman for Commissioner Fox.
Yes.
And is Commissioner Haggerty here?
yes,
Yes.
Yep.
So Commissioner Haggerty, you're gonna sit for Commissioner Claffey.
Okay.
And Commissioner Gill is going to sit in for Commissioner Havens. I believe that's correct. Okay, we did roll call, our alternates, approval of the agenda. Renata, is there any changes at all?
Mr. Chair, we have sent amended agenda out to the commissioners. The amendments were to add addresses to a list of special permits that were to be scheduled for public hearing tonight. And the other amendment that we did was to add the two items under public hearing also as an old business item in case you close your hearings so that you have the opportunity to deliberate. Those were
Okay.
the changes.
Very good. Thank you very much, Renata.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner
Yes.
Havens has arrived in the meeting.
Oh, okay. So Commissioner Havens will sit, and thank you, Commissioner Gill. And we will continue to public participation. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on any of the agenda? Not listed on the agenda for 2 minutes, please raise your hand. Counselor Bodrako, go right ahead.
Yes, I have a kind of admission to make, and shame on me, but I really haven't paid a lot of attention to Newington's history over the past several years. But because of the 150th anniversary, I've really become a lot more involved. And what I learned is that Newington Junction has 3 distinct neighborhoods that are designated as historic districts in the National Historic Register of Historic Places. And being on the register is an identification of places that are significant to our nation's history. And these 3 neighborhoods were placed on the register in 1987. And listing on this register really recognizes the community's significant historic properties, and in my opinion, should be a source of civic pride. And the reason that we're on the register is because of the architectural styles that are used in some of the buildings that are still present and were built when the junction was a really busy center of development and transport. But designation at this national level isn't regulatory or directive, which kind of explains why the area looks like it does now. And historic integrity can only be protected really at the local level. And at the local level in the past, we really, I think, kind of neglected to either capitalize or develop the area as something really special or something of character and pride. So as a result, the central area is scattered obviously with incompatible modern structures. So because of this, when the designation was made, 3 neighborhoods were identified as a separate historic district: Newington Junction South, Newington Junction North, and Newington Junction West. And Newington Junction South is located on either side of Willard Avenue, near the intersection of Stoddard with Willard. And there's 9 properties that are on the register over 10 acres. And these are 6 houses, the Old North District Schoolhouse, which is now the American Legion, and 2 early 20th century garages. And the houses here are noted for late Victorian, colonial, Gothic, revival styles. And there's architecture from 1725 to 1924. Newington Junction North is on Willard Avenue, north of the intersection with West Hill Road. And there's 13 properties that are recognized with styles that include colonial, revival, late Victorian, and Queen Anne styles. And the architecture there is 1850 to 1949. And the final one is Newington Junction West, which is primarily along West Hill Road and also includes the pillars on Chapman. And there's 13 properties here. And the buildings there are cited for examples of colonial revival, and late Victorian styles. And the architecture there is from the period of 1650 to 1949. In fact, the oldest structure, which is thought to be the oldest building in Newington, is the John Camp House at 301 to 303 West Hill Road. So basically, my comments tonight are, I don't really know what happened between 1987 and now, but currently I think you have an opportunity to make up for an awful lot of lost opportunities as you move forward with plans to develop the junction and TOD, because historic preservation doesn't just mean individual properties, but it also includes areas and districts which contain special meaning for the community. And historic areas can thrive because they kind of possess a concentration of buildings, structures, sites, or styles that are linked historically and also aesthetically. And a lot of communities have successfully used their historic areas as a lure for development and positive economic growth. You know, you just look at Old Weathersfield any weekend. And historic areas are attractive places for residents and others to visit, shop, dine, go for a walk, and have a drink. And Newington Junction, if you take this opportunity and if it's properly developed, can certainly become a destination place. So what I'm asking is that you consider incorporating the historic significance of Newington Junction into your planning for future design, themes, and cohesiveness of the area, and perhaps even kind of come up with a way when you're doing a new development to kind of spruce up and integrate what's already there. And develop kind of, like I said, like a nice new destination place where people can walk, come to, dine, shop, and just recreate and also appreciate who we are as a community, where we were and where we're going. And properly done, it would have a positive impact on the economy, I think, but it would also protect and increase local present and property values. And I think this type of development with a historic theme and incorporating what's already there would be more amenable to local property values. And it's possible to do this without regulation, and I hope you'll consider it. But I just want to mention one last thing. I've read about something called historic overlay zones, and that's an additional layer of consideration for specific areas laid over the underlying zones, and it's been used successfully in several Connecticut communities as a tier that's applied to areas that are considered worthy of preservation because of either architectural, cultural, or historic significance. So instead of establishing a cumbersome local historic district, which would have an awful lot of regulations and new committees and whatever, it seems like possibly a historic overlay zoning would allow a community to protect historic areas and structures to ensure that any alterations, additions, or demolitions are in keeping with the special character of the area they want to preserve. And in 1977, Connecticut General Statute 8-2 was amended to allow zoning commissions to consider historic factors when rendering a zoning decision. So I don't know if this is something you want to look into or you can consider, but in any case, no matter how you proceed, I'm just hoping that you consider the significance of the area, what it was and what it can be when you're moving forward with planning for Newington Junction, because a historic district that is aesthetically cohesive and well promoted, I think can become an important asset for Newington. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak?
Nobody else has indicated with their hand raised.
Okay, thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Remarks by commissioners? Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes, I have a question here. I got the updated revised Let me get the right name here, so I don't get.
Yeah.
confused. Zoning regulations effective 26 April. And I was going through them today, and I happened to notice that is on the TOD zone, there is no waivers on anything in there. What it says, and it's quite interesting, it says that incentives, less mandatory landscaping, less mandatory on-site parking, and reduced front and side rear setbacks. So I think we have to be significantly careful doing any type of waiving anywhere, because I believe the Motors Commission did say that we cannot waive our own rules. And again, I'm bringing that up because I don't want to see us wind up in court. That's my concern there. Secondly, I kind of agree with Gail. I did do some research myself. I used to live at 337 Willard Avenue when I was a little kid. And I know there was a historic salt boxes up there that have been torn down and stuff. Matter of fact, I think that one was taken and moved up to up in Massachusetts up there, Sturbridge Village, and reassembled. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose all our history in this town. And I don't really think that's what the residents really want, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right. Any other?
I agree with Gail Bajirko about the historic value of our neighborhoods, as same with Stanley Sobieski.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Braverman. Any other remarks? I'm going to ask Commissioner Havens if he could read the procedures for a public hearing, if he hasn't.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Procedures for public hearings. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission's secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by applicant, limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application, limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application, limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant, limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition, limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Havens. Commissioner Leonard, could you read petition 17-21, please?
Absolutely. Petition 17-21, zoning text amendment to provide for alternate minimum frontage in the PD zone and to increase allowed apartment density in the PD zone. Sections 4.5, 3.18, and 3.19. HJG-PC Newington Investor LLC applicant, Dennis Godier.
Okay, thank you very much. And is the applicant here? If you could state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Town Planner Bertotti, Assistant Town Planner, Mr. Hinckley, and Mr. Krupinski. Thank you. For the record, my name is Chris Smith. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Alter and Pearson, and I appear before you this evening on behalf of the applicant concerning this petition for zone text amendment. And with the permission of the chair, I do believe we have a PowerPoint presentation that Mr. Godier will hopefully pull up for us.
Fantastic.
And that this will assist with our presentation this evening.
Okay, give me just a moment. I just need to allow for that. I wasn't aware it was happening.
Oh, sorry about that, James.
Nope, that's okay. Gives me just a sec. Should be all set now.
There we go. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dennis. Again, for the record, Chris Smith on behalf of the applicant. We do have before you this evening proposed text amendments to the Plan Development Zone District And in particular, they concern two specific areas in the planned development zone. One concerns density for apartments. The other concerns frontage, certain frontage requirements for parcels for development purposes. And density is involved with, starting at the bottom bullet here at section 319. Frontage is 318. And then what we've been asked to do, and we've included those or rolled those into the table that appears in section 4.5. But from an overview, it's essentially two issues that two of the requirements or provisions in the PD zone that we're respectfully requesting that the commission consider amending. And again, one involves density, the other is frontage. And there we go. Standard of review for a zone text amendment. Never like to lecture a commission, but just as a reminder, perhaps for folks that might be watching, it's a three-part test. First, the proposed zone text amendment has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, which, as you're well aware, that comprises your zoning regulations and your zone map. Two, the proposal should be consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development. In this case, your plan of conservation and development 2020 to 2030 that you just recently have adopted. And three, the proposed text amendment should be found not to adversely impact the public health, safety, and welfare. And Dennis Godier in particular from the team will be walking you through the specifics of the proposal and demonstrating how we respectfully submit the proposal does comply with this standard of review. Legal notices, your professional staff did send the notice to CROG, and the Regional Council of Government did submit a report dated April 8th, 2021. And I'll leave that to, it's my understanding you have a copy of that, but essentially CROG concluded that, quote, there's no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies. I had to move over the photo here, the screen, or the concerns of neighboring towns, end of quote. So in other words, it doesn't have any real regional impacts. We did also, because the properties located in the planned development zone district throughout town may be located over a watershed or an aquifer protection area, we did send notice to the MDC as well as the Connecticut DPH, Department of Public Health, as required by statute in the event that they were. So those notices were sent and they have been returned and are part of the record. Next, okay. Just to introduce the applicant and the consultant team. The applicant essentially comprises two different entities. One is Grossman Development Group, the other is Criterion Development Partners. From the Grossman Development Group, we have Mr. Howard Grossman, who is the president and managing principal. We also have with us this evening Jamie Anderson, who is the senior project manager. On behalf of Criterion Development Partners, we have Mr. Jack Englert, who is the executive vice president and principal from Criterion. And just from an overview, the text amendments, and as you're aware, we did a pre-application meeting with the commission. You were gracious enough to afford us that as provided by state statute in your regs. As you may recall, ultimately these text amendments will support a special permit application for a specific site development where there's a proposed mixed use. In other words, part of it will be commercial, retail, the other would be residential, and Grossman Development Group would be spearheading the commercial retail component and Criterion the residential. For legal, myself, and with us this evening from BL Companies, Dennis Godier, who is not only a professional licensed architect, but he's also a certified, AICP certified planner, and he is the senior project manager for this proposal. What I would like to do with the permission of the chair at this point is, and we'll keep to that time frame that you gave us at the outset, but I think it would be important again for you and possibly people attending the public hearing just to hear very briefly from Mr. Grossman and then Mr. Englert.
I have no problem with the time limit. You don't, we're not going to be stringent on the time limit. So you can proceed and don't worry about going over the time limit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So with your permission, I'll turn the presentation over to Mr. Grossman.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Howard Grossman. I am president of Grossman Development Group. We're a retail and mixed use development and redevelopment company based in Framingham, Massachusetts. And we have been in business as Grossman Development Group since 2009, though I have been doing retail real estate for over 40 years in various capacities. We basically work around New England, and we acquire, we develop, and redevelop retail and mixed use. Again, just to point out, in looking at properties around the area and why we've chosen Newington, we are very bullish and optimistic about Connecticut, and we're here to stay. We recently acquired a property not too far from here in Middletown, Connecticut, Middletown Plaza. And we're in the process of looking to redevelop that as well. We also have redeveloped a mall in the Albany area, acquired a center in Waterville, Maine. These are our most recent ones, but the most comparable one to what we're talking about tonight and the proposed development, if we're fortunate enough to get these text amendments, is a property that I redeveloped a few years ago, actually an assemblage of 7 parcels in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, called Lakeway Commons. And it has many of the factors related to the project that we are looking to do in Newington. Grocery anchored, along with about 50,000 feet of amenity retail and boutique retail. And by that, I mean, sometimes we like to use the word trying to be as Amazon proof as possible in this new world of retail and online. So we have restaurants, we have fitness, we have service, we have medical and wellness, banking and so forth and the like. Those types of uses that customers and consumers have to come and feel and touch. And we've been very successful with that type of program. In Shrewsbury, we have between 90 and 100,000 square feet of retail and 250 apartments that were developed by Criterion, who we're partnering with here in Newington. And you'll hear in a moment from Jack Englert. One thing I really do want to point out, and the details of the project, again, will be forthcoming somewhat tonight, and then obviously through planning and zoning in the future. But I really want to point out that Grossman Development Group as a company is not the type of owner that collects its rents, cuts and runs, and is absentee. We're vertically integrated. We manage our own properties at a very high level. And more important, we become part of the community. And I urge you, if you have the opportunity and the inclination to speak with the town manager of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, or the planning board, or any of the selectmen, you'll see how we executed this project, but more important, how we become an integral part of the community, having community events at the property more than a few times a year, working philanthropically with nonprofits and other community agencies in need. And we really try to be a good citizen within the community once we've executed our plan. Thank you. Now I'd like to, with your permission, introduce Jack Englert of Criterion Development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Jack Englert from Criterion Development. We are a multifamily development company that has been based in the Boston and Dallas area since 2004. The partners here have worked together since 1996. So I think I've been working with my immediate partner here longer than I've been married, which is always interesting and very similar in some cases. Anyway, we are a multifamily developer. All we do is multifamily, as I said. We have built over 5,500 units in the last several years, and are very pleased to have an opportunity to join with Howard once again to try to mimic what we were able to successfully complete in Shrewsbury, Mass. Howard, and I don't mean to bolster his perception, but he is a great developer, and we are really thrilled to be able to be involved in another project with him. You can go to the next page, I think, and just a sense of the types of developments we've done. We're more active in Boston of late. These happen to show a 288 unit project in Medford, right at the Wellington T stop, another one in Cambridge, right on Route 2, just outside the Alewife train station. And we've continued to look at multifamily development only because that's all we have ever done. And we don't really get sidetracked with condominiums or any other types of development. So an opportunity to work with a retail developer and actually create a mixed use development while we don't have to do the other use is really a great opportunity for us, and one that we are very excited about. We've been in the Connecticut area quite a bit looking around. We've never found the right fit. This to us is a great site and a terrific opportunity. And we really look forward to moving forward if the board is so inclined.
Okay, for the record, Chris Smith again, thank you, Howard and Jack. And Mr. Chairman, before turning the presentation over to Dennis Godier, who will walk you through the specifics with the text amendment and its relative to the standard of review for the commission, I would just like to respectfully remind the commission and anyone attending this public hearing that this evening involves two text amendments. There's actually three, but there are two, one dealing again with density, the other with frontage. There is no specific site development proposal before the commission this evening, as you're well aware. If the text amendments were to be approved, any site development would be subject to a new application and a separate one for a special permit. And that would be subject to a public hearing and a different process than this text amendment. So again, I was hoping to just point that out for the record. And now Dennis Godier will walk you through the proposed text amendments to this flexible planning tool that you've recently adopted, known as your Plan Development Zone District. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I turn it over to Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Smith. For the record, my name is Dennis Godier. I'm a senior project manager with BL Companies, an architecture engineering firm located in Meriden, Connecticut, and also in Hartford, Connecticut. As Chris had mentioned, my background as a certified planner, I'm also trained as a landscape architect, a licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut. I do also think it's important to note that as well as being a consultant, as I am currently my past life, I have also served as a town planner, city planner for City of Hartford, town of Waterford, Connecticut, and the city of Groton as well. So I've sat on your side of the table in your town planners seat and provided guidance. It's been a pleasure working with everybody to date. And I look forward to giving you the specifics of this application, and thank you for your flexibility on the time allotted to us. The three amendments of the sections that Attorney Smith had previously noted affect only the planned development district, or the PD district. And then the current zoning map is up on your screen, and in red is the location of the PD districts, with the majority of them being along the Berlin Turnpike in the south eastern and south central portion. The PD district, from what we've understand, has been around with the town since the 80s, or maybe perhaps earlier. One thing that is not within the PD district is an actually defined purpose, which is something that districts generally will have, but that's fine. I think we have an understanding of what the purpose of the district is, and that's to promote the policies of your POCD, as well as creating flexibility to respond to changes in the economy. And Mr. Grossman had discussed one with being quote unquote Amazon proof, but just changing in how the economy and retail and commercial evolved and are influenced by e-commerce. But also providing, generally it provides flexibility for both standards such as lot sizes, coverage, and frontage, the types of uses, types of housing, as well as building and site design as well. And we'll talk about these a bit in a moment. I'm going to touch upon the frontage amendment at this point first, and there might be some back and forth with numbers, but bear with me. This is a little bit on the technical side and a little bit on the mundane side, but it's necessary. So currently, in the PD district, lots are required to have a minimum of 70 feet of frontage. we are seeking to provide an alternative, not to replace that, but an alternative minimum of 50 feet. And this, again, would allow flexibility in the design of lots and creating of new lots that might have and require flexibility in ownership. Larger lots that would take a, need to have various uses and that would bring different levels of expertise to the table, which then, as I mentioned, might require different ownerships. This would also provide flexibility with longer, narrower lots. Those might be deeper. Those might have irregular shapes. And again, really, it's about providing opportunities for underutilized or vacant parcels that are not being utilized to their fullest potential or utilized at all. And we believe that the 50-foot minimum that we are talking about with this alternative would be sufficient for site access and the circulation. You can certainly fit a driveway or even a roadway within a 50 feet. Where this is being addressed is in two locations. The first is in section 4.5 under table B. Table B discusses the bulk standards in different zoning districts, PD being one of them. So the height, yard, and area requirements. There's a housekeeping item that we are proposing to strike the reference to non-residential uses, because in fact, this table does address residential. And it's actually noted right here as residential in the PD zone with the minimum lot area of 5 acres. So that's really more of a housekeeping in clarity. And then we've added a note 7, or to see note 7 below, which says says except as permitted by section 3.18.3, inclusive of residential uses. And that really is referring to the alternative that we are proposing for the frontage here. So when we go to that section 3.18.3, it is currently showing frontage, at least 70 feet of frontage on a public street is required for each lot or use. The proposal that has been submitted before you maintains that minimum of 70 feet. We did add some housekeeping, just added the spelling of 70. But this is where we say an or, and we provide frontage may be reduced to 50 feet with the following provisions. I'll get into those in a moment. I've simplified this text, but it talks about the existing lot that's going to be subdivided having to have a minimum frontage of 300 feet. The newly created lots would have a minimum size, and then we also get into access to ensure there's adequate traffic circulation from both just a functional standpoint of people utilizing the site and dispersing traffic, but also from a public safety standpoint. And so a little bit more on what those the alternative test would be, if you will. So the lot that would be subdivided would have to have a minimum of 300 feet of existing frontage. The new parcels that would be created would have to be a minimum of 10 acres. With the 300 feet of the existing parcel frontage. There must be 2 points of access to a public way. Both can be, in that the 2 points of access is for the newly created lot that would have the reduced frontage, just to clarify that. One of those must be under control by the owner of that lot with the reduced frontage. That second access can be provided to a public way through an easement in perpetuity over another lot. And then, so this can't be a spiral effect, if you will, or snowball effect. This can't happen more than this one time. You get one crack at the apple. An applicant couldn't decide, well, I'm gonna do something different. I created a 15-acre parcel. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna make another lot that has a reduced parcel. That would be contrary to this. It would not be provided under this proposal as another option. So that covers the frontage. I'll walk you through our proposal for the addressing density. So density amendment applies only to the density of apartments. And it is to, again, similar to the frontage, to promote the use or reuse of underutilized or vacant parcels, to provide for the changing and evolving market demands. And we'll talk about your POCD in a moment, but it also helps to address your policies for housing in the POCD by creating that flexibility in housing type and the size of each unit as well. And that size of the units would be driven by the consumer and the end user and those individuals that are renting. Currently, the POD districts allow duplex, townhomes, as well as apartments. Apartments are different than townhomes, and they're different than duplexes. And we'll talk a little bit more about currently the way the regulations are written. Density is the same blanket, whether you're duplex, townhome, or apartment. You have 4,500 square feet of lot area per unit. But apartments are generally higher density in nature, and people that are purchasing or renting apartments are looking for a higher density community to live in than you might have in a townhome or in a duplex type community. They're generally more than 2 stories, but definitely be a minimum of 2 stories, but generally 3, 4, or even 5 stories. In your PD district, you allow 4 stories, and we're not suggesting we're looking to change that. It provides a wider range of user unit types, from studios to 1 bedrooms up to 3 bedrooms are generally the case in apartments. And overall, on a density standpoint, when you go up vertically, the overall footprint is less from the building development standpoint. Just to reemphasize the 3 units that we're talking about here, you can see the duplex on the left, townhomes on the right, both are generally 2 stories. And by your definitions of a duplex, it's 2 dwelling units sharing 1 common wall in a single structure. And then the townhomes would generally be a 2-story structure with multiple units within one overall structure sharing a common wall. And then apartments would be generally 2, 3, 4 stories with, I believe your definition says 4 or more units within an apartment. So the mechanics of how this would work, starting with section 4.5 in table A. As you can see here, as I had mentioned, and I'll highlight it, patio houses, duplexes, and townhomes is the only density that addresses that type of product type. There's no reference to apartments. For PD district, that density is addressed directly inside the PD zoning section right now, and I'll show that in a moment. What we are suggesting occur is that this table to be amended to allow or to identify apartments at a density of 1,500 square feet per unit. And then there's a note to see table B for the bulk standards, which here they talk about bulk standards, but it's already covered in table B before it in the same section of the zoning regulations. And a couple of footnotes are added just to reinforce that these would be permitted, or apartments are by special permit only. So that wouldn't change the fact of how it works currently. It is currently a special permitted use, and it would remain a special permitted use. So here's a snapshot of what the regulations look like currently. Under site area, if you weren't reading carefully, you would not know where to find the density. But actually, the density is covered under the site area. Not only does it state the 5 acres, but it talks about it being 4,500 square feet of site area of each dwelling unit. And then it goes on to discuss how to compute the overall area of the site. What we've proposed is a couple of housekeeping items. We've added a clause here, subject to the density requirement set forth in this section. Really just, I felt it was more of a clarity to say, residential is allowed, but here, if you want to do it, in order to, where the density is located, it's located in this section, and refer to this section for that information. We broke out minimum site area and clarified that it is minimum. And that would be 5 acres, which hasn't changed. And then we have a new item 3 for residential density. We struck the current text and we just said to refer back to table A, which is the 1,500 square feet per unit. We did strike the computation method. We felt that that would provide both the commission and applicants a greater level of flexibility in reviewing applications as well as preparing a proposal. I mean, that this is a special permit use and you would have the ultimate flexibility when you are evaluating whether a density is in fact compatible with that property. And as I had mentioned, this is would be a special permit for anything, not this application that's before you tonight, but any application that comes before you for multifamily, or I should say, or for apartments within the PD district. If this was to be approved, would come under the review of special permits. And under your section 5.2, you evaluate the need of the use as well as the impacts on neighborhood character, the design of the buildings, as well as the site, traffic impacts, ensuring there's adequate utilities, and then protecting adjacent properties to reduce impacts or ensure there are no detrimental impacts on neighboring properties.
Okay.
It would still be subject to site plan reviews, which are covered in 2 of the different sections. And under the special permit, the commission does have very broad discretion and may place various types of conditions upon a plan if it so chooses to approve such a special permit.
Okay, very good.
As a couple more minutes, if you will, Mr. Chairman, I just want to give some highlights. As Attorney Smith had mentioned, there was for the standards of review. One is with the POCD, and I believe the town planner had provided in her report to you. We feel that this is consistent with many policies set forth in your 2030 POCD. Not going to read all of them for the sake of time, but it does provide a variety of different housing types for people at different age cohorts. Whether you're empty nesters to married folks to single older individuals, and that there is a need in the community, according to your POCD, to provide that type of housing opportunities. From an economic development standpoint, the Berlin Turnpike has been identified as an opportunity area. It has talks about redevelopment of sites that are underutilized specifically, and we believe that both the frontage as well as increasing a density for residential can help support and make these parcels viable and successful. And then it continues to talk about attracting new businesses, focusing on the economic opportunity areas, which these are doing. Again, I won't go through each individual one.
Okay, very good.
Yep. And again, in infrastructure, it is addressed, and we feel that we meet the 3-part tests for the comprehensive plan, as well as the POCD, and that there would not be a detrimental or adverse impact on the health, safety, and welfare.
Okay, Dennis, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Does that wrap everything up?
That does.
Okay. I'm going to just check with our town planner to see if she wants to add anything. If she has any comments at all before we go to the public, and I'll see if the commissioners have any questions.
Mr. Chair, I am in support of this application. I have reviewed it. I believe that request for frontage reduction makes sense because, first of all, in my opinion, it provides sufficient width for the 2-way road plus associated infrastructure such as installation of utilities, snow shelf, sidewalks when required or needed. I further believe that in the way this particular aspect of the proposal has been put up will encourage property owners to plan, like master plan developments of their sites, rather than sort of piecemeal and plan as they go along. Secondly, I believe that the density increase is also compatible with several sections of our POCD. I have itemized and outlined that in my memo. We currently allow 4-story buildings in a PD zone. So just from common sense perspective, we allow these taller residential structures in the PD zone. At the same time, we have density restrictions that essentially locate these like taller buildings, but require larger site. We also don't have necessarily different setback requirements. So if the idea behind this was that if you have a larger building, it has to be further away from the street to reduce that bulk impact, we don't have that currently in our regulations. Hypothetically speaking, somebody could come and put this stick, 4-story building on a large site on the corner next to, perhaps residential neighborhood or something. So I really do not see why this density restriction is so high for the apartment units, and I don't feel it's warranted. Again, just to tie in on this opportunity areas and sites, when you're looking at this, we're looking at the entire PD zone. So we're looking at the areas along Berlin Turnpike, we're looking at the area on intersection of Cedar and Fenn, places like that where you have high trafficked roads and you generally have parcels that lend themselves well for these kind of mixed and residential developments. So I think when you consider that, just keep in mind that this is not necessarily to one location. This really applies to the whole zone. And in my opinion, it complies and fits with the zone itself. So that's all I would add.
Thank you very much, Renata. At this time, I'll ask commissioners if they have any questions for the applicant or the town planner. Please keep in mind that we have a public hearing and we're going to go to the public next. But if there's any questions from the commissioners, please raise your hand. Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Payne. Couple things. We're going to a 1,500 square foot apartment. Can you just, I know there's no plans, I'm just asking, what would that entail? A bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, dining?
Commissioner Sobieski, I'm going to have our town planner explain that, because these aren't related. These square footages, 4,500 and 1,500, are not related to the size of the unit, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Renata.
Mr. Chair, you are not mistaken. These 4,500 square feet and proposed 1,500 square feet are a land that needs to be dedicated on a lot for dwelling unit of residential development. So if you have a parcel that's perhaps, let's say 9,000 square feet, you can have under 4,500 square foot requirement, only 2 units there. That would equate, and I gotta use my calculator here to, so this would go from, now allowing 2 units to allowing 6 units on the same size parcel. And I'm hypothetically speaking about small parcel and not really calculating any wetlands or lands that would normally be excluded out of this.
Okay, thank you.
That. I just was curious, that's all, because I also have an issue with the height of the building, or what's going to be 4 stories, how it's going to look.
Well, that's already, the height is already allowed in our regulations now.
I understand that, but I'm just concerned with the character of the area. And the other thing that I am.
But we got to remember that this is not specific to any one area. Okay.
I understand that, Commissioner Payne. I'm just expressing my feelings. Okay, but I am definitely in favor of reducing the frontage to from 70 to 50. I think the 70 is way beyond what they need. With a 50-foot frontage, you can get a 30-foot road in and still have 2 10-foot shoulders, grass areas on either side. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Great points. I appreciate it. Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, make sure I'm unmuted here. Yeah, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the lowering of the density. It makes perfect sense. At 4,500 square feet, it makes a project like this probably completely undoable. I think though, if we could, or you could explain to the public why we need to go from the 70 to 50. I don't think everyone's going to understand that. That isn't on the commission. And if I get it correctly, I believe it's because while we have one large parcel of land right now, you are looking to subdivide that into two. It'd be two separate owners. And if I'm following this correctly, the access to the apartment complex, if in fact this moves forward, is off of Payne Road. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
That's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So again, I think people are going to have a hard time understanding, because if they look at 3333, you already have, again, there's probably excess of 300 foot of frontage there. And then we're talking about this, going from 70 down to 50, and why. I just think it's important to get that out there. This is a unique parcel, I believe, the way you've decided to develop it. And I credit you for that. You're turning it into two completely different pieces of land. And you wouldn't be able to develop that back piece if we maintain the 70 foot to get the density that you're looking for. So again, I have no issues with it right now. I think it's a good text amendment, and we'll see what the public has to offer and what the other commissioners have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please go ahead.
if you don't mind, through you, I would actually like to address this. This particular group has put up this proposal to reduce the frontage because they will need that for their future development if this is approved. However, as I said, this will apply to the whole district. And the reason why I am supporting it and why I felt it was a good revision was that we just recently had another development that had converted from PD to TOD zone that had exactly the same issue. So I believe that this question of whether or not a 70-foot requirement for frontage in PD zone is excessive came up before, at least once since I've been here. So it is, this could be a way to address that in the future.
Thank you very much, Renata. I appreciate that. If there's no objections, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go to the public. If there's anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application, Mr. Bongiovanni, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni, 170 Barnhill Lane, Newington, Connecticut. I'm in favor of the text amendments that the applicant is proposing this evening. The first being the frontage. As a town that's mostly developed, this is going to provide some flexibility for the landowners to aggregate parcels, smaller parcels for adaptive reuse, reutilization, which may not be able to happen with the current 70-foot frontage. As talked about, there's a potential for a mixed-use development. Well, to make those projects happen, there's a lot of legal aspects of that. There's easements and things like that. And allowing that 50-foot frontage allows them to be separate parcels, easier to finance. As the people that have spoken this evening, they're two separate entities creating a development that are two separate and distinct developments, but they are very compatible. This would allow that. It's a good thing that the town is entertaining this because, as I said, we have limited land. You have a lot of small, underutilized parcels that could be aggregated. And this would be a tool that would help the town move forward in some of these projects or properties realize their highest and best use. Regarding the density requirements, As a land surveyor, land planner here in Newington, I've dealt with several projects, several prospective clients on properties in the town. And our older regulation that exists now is some 40 plus years old, met the needs of the town at that time. Zoning needs to change with the times, and that's what this is proposing. People's desires change, their needs change, demographics change, and the style of housing that this would permit is what is popular today. And that's why zoning should change to meet the needs of the people. The current regulation really it makes it cost prohibitive, if you would, to develop multifamily 4-story apartments with such a low density. We are surrounded in the town of Newington and on all sides by communities that allow this higher density type development. We have missed out on several opportunities over the last 15 years since apartments have really come back in favor for society. And this would allow us to be competitive and to take advantage of a market that's there and provide newer housing opportunities for the residents and potential new residents to the town. One of the things that we have is a relatively fair amount of apartments, but it's of older vintage. Anything that's going to be built today is going to have different amenities, different style, a lot more accessible units being built. And that's something that people need. And if these regulations can be modified or adjusted as proposed to meet those needs, well, that's a benefit for the town of Newington, and I'm completely in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bongiovanni. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this application?
No other hands raised at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, one more time. If there's anybody wishing to speak in favor, now's the time. If hearing none, is there anybody that would like to speak against this, speak in opposition?
We do have one individual.
Go right ahead. Cars?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm Cara Santora from 93 Francis Avenue. I just finished work and I signed in, so I didn't hear all the conversation, so I apologize for that. But it looks like you're trying to amend to provide alternate frontage in the PD zone and increase allowed apartment density.
That's
what I'm
correct.
reading on the screen. And what area is that, does that cover?
It covers the PD zone, which is planned development zone, and it's up and down the Berlin Turnpike mainly.
Okay, so this isn't related to Newington Junction?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
I don't
All
think,
right.
let me double check with Renata. Renata, that's not PD zone over there, is it?
I don't think so, but.
Mr. Chair, I do not have a zoning map in front of me,
Okay.
but the parcels that are currently included for my review in the Newington Junction area are all zoned industrial, not PD.
Okay, thank you, Renata. Is there anything else, Kara?
No, the only thing I was just a little bit concerned about is that planning and zoning makes the decisions, and nothing against Renata, but the town planner generally isn't the one that I understand that makes the decision. So this would be up, Newington Junction or this here would be up to planning and zoning. Is that correct?
Say that again now.
So when it comes up to, doing something in the zone or changing a zone, my understanding was that the town planner was not the one that made the decision, but the planning and zoning committee.
Yeah, the Planning and Zoning Commission will make the decision if we propose a zone. If we had proposed something, then this commission will make that decision, yes.
Okay, thank you. So the final decision is on the commission. Thank you. That was just my question. I needed to get that cleared up.
No problem. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? Does the applicant have anything that it would like to wrap up with?
Hey,
Anything
I
else?
don't, for the record, Chris Smith, Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission, professional staff, again, thank you for the opportunity to present this petition for zone text amendments to the commission this evening. And we respectfully submit that the proposed text amendments are consistent with your comprehensive plan, your POCD, and certainly will not result in an adverse impact to the public health safety. And we would respectfully request that the commission consider acting favorably upon the text amendments that are before you this evening. And again, thank you for the time and working with the commission and with your professional staff with this proposal. Good night.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, commission members, if there's no objection, I don't see a reason why we can't close this petition 17-21.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we close petition 17-21 and move it to old business for possible action.
Okay, it's on the agenda for old business. So this will be closed and we'll bring it up under old business later in the agenda. Do I have a second?
Haggerty, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Haggerty. Commissioner Haggerty seconded. Any comments or concerns? Questions? All in favor of closing petition 17-21?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed? Okay, hearing nothing, petition 17-21 unanimously was voted to be closed, and we will bring it up under old business later in the agenda.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The next petition, if I could have one of the commissioners, Woods, if you could read petition 18-21, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, petition 18-21, special permit, sections 3.153 and section 6.6.2 for a restaurant serving alcohol beverages in the B/BT zone at 2186 Berlin Turnpike. Is it Oljide Bello, applicant and contact? If I butchered your name, I apologize.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
And is the applicant here?
He was on earlier.
Yes, good evening, sir. I'm here.
Hi, could you explain a little bit, state your name for the record and address, and maybe explain a little bit about what you're proposing?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Olajide Bello, for the record. What I'm proposing to do in the restaurant is to be able to serve alcohol beverages. A few months after COVID was when I saw this property and I approached the landlord. So the first thing I asked him was what was doing in the location before, and he told me that it was a restaurant. And basically the restaurant was closed because of low sales. So I told him what I'm planning to do, because when I'm moving from Houston, I realized that there are a lot of West African people around this area, but most of them actually travel to New York or New Jersey to have their food. So that was the reason why I tried to bring the restaurant close to most people that live around this area. So when we started, I just talked to the landlord, okay, is it possible I can get a alcoholic license? Then he immediately pointed to the liquor store across the street. And also you mentioned other Bull Alley and a bar and also another restaurant down the street. And he said, well, he doesn't have any idea if I will not be able to get the license. So I said, okay, if that is the case, that is not what I need right now. All I have to do is to be able to situate the business. So I signed 5-year lease, even though it's very difficult for us during COVID, but we keep going. So going forward, and I realized that if I will be able to serve alcohol beverage, that will definitely improve our sales so that we can continue to be in service. So that is the reason why I put in for the application.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Let me go to the town planner. If Renata, if you could give us a report on this.
Mr. Chair, yes. So the applicant actually owns a food market, a grocery store next door to what used to be called Tony Baloney's. And I think it was like a deli style of restaurant that didn't have originally a liquor permit. So the applicant would open a restaurant, and for that restaurant, they're seeking for a liquor permit. Going forward, and I will bring this definitely up under our B zone regulation amendments, I would like to see these special permits for sale of alcoholic beverages be handled not by the commission, but just as a part of the site plan or something like that, because restaurants really should not separately require a special permit for liquor service, especially not in areas such as Berlin Turnpike. That being said, I support this. It's it's consistent with our site plan and special permit requirements, and I would encourage you to approve this.
Complies with everything, correct? Complies with all the distance requirements or anything else?
It does,
Yeah.
it does.
Okay, very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we're gonna go to the public. Anybody in public wishing to speak in favor of this? Commissioner Sobieski, go right
Just one
ahead.
quick question. Is there enough parking there? That's my only question. Renata?
I believe so, but
So, Mr. Chair, they are, through you again, they are
Yes.
required to provide on the site parking that is sufficient for a restaurant. This was analyzed under previous restaurant. So, and I believe some years back, not that long ago, they were even in front of you for, yeah, this restaurant was only approved in 2019.
Yeah.
So under that special permit, they would have
I just want to
had this reviewed.
make sure. Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. Going to the public now. Anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anybody wishing to speak in favor? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? I think this is a nice added benefit for the applicant. I'll ask the commissioners if there's no other question and there's no objection that we close petition 18-21 and take it up under old business.
Don't move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Commissioner Woods. Do I have a second?
Second, Sobieski.
Seconded by Commissioner Sobieski. Thank you. Is there any questions, comments? Any concerns? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Is there anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, then this gets closed and moved to old business. And we're gonna take this up a little later. Thank you. Okay, next thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes. All right, entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made by Commissioner Sobieski. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Commissioner Woods. This is for approval of TPZ minutes for 4-14-2021. Any corrections? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Anyone opposed? Very good. Minutes are approved. We have nothing under new business. And then the first thing up is petition 17-21 under old business. If I could have Commissioner Sobieski, would you like to read that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Petition 17, excuse me, petition 17-21 zoning text amendment to provide for alternate minimum frontage in the PD zone and to increase allowed apartment density in the PD zone, sections 4.5, 3.18, and 3.19 HJG hyphen TC Newington Investors LLC applicant Dennis Gerjarlin. Contact. Approve. Move to approve the zoning regulation amendments with the effective date of 11 May 2021. Excuse me. The reasons for the approval. The request for the reduction in the lot frontage to 50 feet provides for the significant width to accommodate two-way paved road and the right-of-way for snow, shelf, and location of the utilities. The proposed amendment related to the density in the PD zones are in keeping with several chapters of the 2020-2030 POCD, and in particular with the goals and objectives in Chapter 10 and 8 of the plan.
Second,
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski, with the motion, and we have Commissioner Woods that has seconded. Do we have any discussion? Any questions? I think this is an excellent thing for the town of Newington. It's really gonna possibly bring in some development for PD zones. And I'm all in favor of this. Noreen, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Commissioner Braverman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Haggerty.
Yes.
Chairman Payne.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations on your amendment to the regulations.
Thank you
Next thing
again.
on the, see you soon. Thank you. Next thing on the agenda of old business is petition 18-21. If Commissioner Haggerty, if you could read that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Petition 18-21 special permit, sections 3.15.3 and 6.6.2 for a restaurant serving alcoholic beverages in the B/B-BT zone at 2186 Berlin Turnpike. Olajide Bello applicant and contact. Move to approve the special permit to allow the restaurant to serve liquor. Reasons for the approval. The proposed use meets the special permit criteria of section 6.64 and 5.2.6 of the regulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Haggerty. Do I have a second?
Second, Sobieski.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobieski, seconded by Commissioner Sobieski. Any questions or concerns? I think this is an excellent thing for the restaurant owner. I hope this helps his business. I'm all in favor of this. Noreen, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Havens,
Yes.
Commissioner Linares,
Yes.
Commissioner Sobieski,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Commissioner Braverman,
Yes.
Commissioner Haggerty,
Yes.
Chairman Payne.
Yes. Congratulations. Okay, next thing on the agenda is petitions for public hearing scheduling. Those are there. I'll ask Renata if there's anything she'd like to speak about that. If not, then she can go right into her town planner's report.
I don't necessarily need to speak about the applications that are scheduled for the hearing. I actually was going to address some of that under my planner's report anyways. So if we are at that section of the meeting when I do my planner's report, I wanted to inform you that essentially we've been quite busy and the department's been excitingly busy, actually. And with that in mind, I have started preparing some documents that we will be posting online so that general public, and I will encourage you to, when you speak to, your constituents, your friends, your neighbors, let them know that this is available. But any application that comes to the planning department is going to get posted on the document that I don't even remember what did I name it, but it's okay. So these are the applications that are received between 14th and 26th. You have several applications that are for the site at 333 Berlin Turnpike. The first application deals with residential development. The next 4 deals with several series of uses that they will have on the commercial part of that project. So this looks like a big deal, but you will be having this hearing on the commercial parcel, and it will include explanations as to the brew pub, as to the gyms, as to the restaurants, or all these other uses that specifically require special permits. We have also received an application for to allow a religious event. This is something that I believe happens annually. It's for the downtown on a lovely place. And then we are also looking at development at 285 and 293 Connecticut Avenue. There is a subdivision request as well as several special permits to create some interior lots. So these are just the ones that we received between the 14th and 21. James, if you can move on to the next paper or next document that I gave you. So this is the document that I was actually starting my report with. We will put anything that comes to the planning will be put on this agenda, and we will provide a tentative scheduling. So this is kind of looking maybe a month and a half ahead so that people have notice on public hearing items, on any application for site plan. We're including wetlands and ZBA applications here as well. So I believe that this is going to help us notify public a little bit better than, just scheduling things for the public hearing. Like we do right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's already been out on Facebook, I believe. And so I think it's a very useful tool. I'm going to go to Commissioner Woods for 1 second. I believe he has a question. Commissioner Woods.
It's really after she's done with her report. I have a question for her, but I don't want to interrupt her report.
Very good, Commissioner Woods. Thank you.
So those are the documents that we created. Now, I also have received several inquiries, and one in particular that I wanted to get some direction from the commission on is the skating rink on Newington Skating Rink, which is a business that's actually not being negatively, I guess, impacted by COVID somehow. I'm not sure how that happened to them, but apparently they did okay. They perhaps may have some plans to expand, but in addition to that, they also may have some plans to add a restaurant rather than a snack bar. It's an industrial zone. This is the second or third time that somebody asked me about having a restaurant in an industrial zone since November. So I wanted to see with you if this was one of those things that I should perhaps do an amendment and propose that we allow restaurants, even if we do it under special permit, but in some form, so that use is allowed in industrial zone. I see no negatives to it.
Very good. Yeah, the Newington Skating Rink, if I'm not mistaken, we approved a small addition for them some time ago, but I don't believe they did the addition. So that should be on the record somewhere. And as far as putting a restaurant in the skating rink or other industrial zones, I don't see a problem with that. I think having something like that in the skating rink could be a very good plus for the visitors, along along for the business too. I don't have a problem with that. Let's open it up to the other commissioners to see how they feel. Anybody like to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward with that, adding a restaurant to the skating rink, if in fact they would do that, and also having restaurants in industrial zones. I think both good uses.
Okay, Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, I'm in favor of the skating ring restaurant. Long as they're, it's only open when the rink is open and not going to be open after the rink is closed. And as far as the industrial areas, I think they have to be looked at area by area. But, it's a possibility.
I think that's why Renata is proposing to have them by special exception, so that they'll come to this commission so that you guys can review each one. Correct, Renata?
Frankly, Mr. Chair, at some point, I really would like to not actually require special permits for all restaurants of all sizes, but I kind of feel that this could be one of those quick things and temporary things until we, you as a commission, decide how you want to go with the restaurants, period. And then that will apply to each zoning district, right?
Yeah,
so I feel right now to just put it as special permit in industrial zone will help.
I agree with you. And yes, the goal is to try to eliminate some of those by special exception and having them by right. I'm in favor of that down the road when we get a chance to talk about it as a full commission. Any other commissioners have any comments for Renata on this? If there isn't anything, Renata, you can continue with your town planner's report.
And I don't have anything else to report.
Okay.
I have another item that I will bring to you later. It's location of these mechanical units that require frequently variances. I can't make that a priority for me, but one of the things that I look into to tell me where our regulations are not good or where they could be corrected is if I get the same request for a variance over and over again.
Are you talking about like the AC units that are going over the property lines and it has to go to ZBA?
Well, not over the property lines, over the
setback line.
Yes,
I
yes.
misworded.
That is one of those things that I think if somebody were to place like a little fence around or some landscaping to attenuate the noise with the new technology, these are not as noisy as they used to be. So we could probably look into getting a regulation that allows them up to X feet to the property line without, to eliminate some of these variance requests.
Yeah. I agree with you. I've seen a bunch of them. So, and I agree. And the units nowadays are a lot quieter. So, all great points. Any other commissioners have any comments? Go ahead, Renata. Mr. Woods, Commissioner Woods.
I was going to just bring up Cedar Point, and if Renata could give us an update on where it is, if it's going to be back in front of us. I believe they're making some changes. And I don't know if it requires them to come back in front of us, but if we could get an update from Renata, and if you don't have it available tonight, maybe at the next meeting.
So they have not applied to me for anything.
Okay.
I don't know if they're doing any changes to anything. However, depending on what that change is, if we're talking workforce housing versus affordable housing, I don't think that is a change that will bring them back to you. That is something that has been decided by court. It has been decided, like the first sentence in the decision starts with court reviewing this as an affordable housing project or affordable housing development. Whether you call it workforce housing or not,
still affordable.
It doesn't matter to court, right? So, unless they change something that is not superseded by what's decided in this court decision, they won't be in front of you.
No, but again, I'm under the impression that I believe the density has changed. There's less structures, which might not bring them in front of us, but the structures have also changed. That would bring them back in front of us, would it not?
That I would not know. I haven't seen anything from them.
Okay.
So if they bring something in, we'll vet it through the town attorney. That is one that's kind of a little bit over my head since I wasn't here when it happened.
And I understand it's
certainly-
a complicated case.
They certainly have the option, Renata, to come back in front of us now that the density levels are changed and possibly propose additional units there. Is that correct?
They may have the option, but they may not be required.
Not required
Right.
to come in front of us?
To come in
To
front
add-
of you, correct.
To add, but they could still add more units to, or
I
not?
I don't know. It all depends on that court decision and what is it that they're doing. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, they're,
So,
they're putting in X amount of units. All I'm saying is I think that if they chose to add more units to it,
I defer. Honestly, Mr. Chair, I would defer that question to the town attorney.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Gill, did you have a question?
Yes, as far as the online applications, are we looking into that or at all?
What exactly do you mean?
For the zoning applications? We don't have them online right now, correct?
So I don't believe, if you mean something like a software system that we use to issue building permits,
Yes.
we as a town do not have any kind of service like that. So we do have forms posted online. We will take stuff that gets emailed. We are also still requiring paper submissions because we need like live signature on owner consents and things of that nature. But we do not have, unless the town invests some money into a developer that will put in like a software system for us to do that, like building permits. I don't have, I don't know how I otherwise would do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Sobieski?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Payne. Getting back to Cedar Point, my understanding is that they reduced it from 108 units to 72 or 74 because they applied for additional grant money on 8-37, and 15 of those units have to be supervised units. That's what I was told. So I don't know if that means they're going to still put the same amount in there or less. It sounds to me like they're going to put less units in. So I would like to see any changes that they're making. Okay, whether it's in the design of the building or whatever. I'm not saying that I want to review the fact that it's affordable housing or not under the judge's decision. But I think we owe it to ourselves and the town that we see what they're doing to change. That's my opinion.
Any other comments from commissioners? Is there any communications, Renata? Everybody saw the CROGS reports. Is there any questions concerning that? If there isn't anything there, I'll turn it over to the public participation. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? Anybody from the public?
Does not appear at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Remarks from commissioners? Any additional remarks from commissioners? As far as the comments from Councilor Pedreco, I think that our intent always was to protect the historical area over there, provide new development, and still have a lot of protections for the existing historical areas there. So I don't see a problem trying to incorporate some things to protect the history, and maybe incorporate some of the history into the design of future buildings there, so that it blends in with the neighborhood in a nice way. So we will certainly address that when the time comes. I want to thank everybody. I think it was a great meeting, and thank you, James.
My pleasure.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Woods. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.
So if we are off air,
Not
I
yet.
am going,
Not yet.